Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us for this webinar entitled, What are the top drivers to determine a people analytics strategy? I'm Jonathan Webster, co-founder and CMO at MediaQuad, and I head up marketing here at TrenData. I'm really excited about the opportunity to share this webinar with you, so let's take off and get started. So here's our agenda outlining the topics we'll be covering today. I'll share a brief overview of TrenData with you, just the essentials of who we are, what we do. Then we'll tease out some of the differences and similarities between these analytics terms that I know you've heard thrown around and used interchangeably, like they all mean the same thing. And we're talking about HR analytics, people analytics, talent analytics, and workforce analytics. So when addressing the topic of key drivers to determine people analytics strategy, we'd be hard pressed to not highlight some wake-up call catalysts that often drive a new people analytics initiative. From here, we'll all be on the same terminology page. We'll understand some of the problems that drive the need for people analytics, and we'll dive into the key drivers to determine a people analytics strategy where we'll ask ourselves some crucial questions that HR professionals and business leaders can address to save time, increase revenue, decrease costs, and also garner the support of the C-suite. We'll then talk about how to get started with the people analytics strategy. We'll provide a short demonstration of the TrenData solution, and then we'll have an opportunity for some Q&A. So thanks again to everyone for participating in the webinar. I see some people still joining us. Welcome. When it comes to our webinars, we want to provide you with interesting research findings, offer helpful information, and present supportive, thought-provoking ideas. So I won't just spend the webinar telling you how great TrenData is, but I will start with a brief overview. TrenData is headquartered in Richardson, Texas, just a few minutes north of Dallas. We've been around since 2016, and we launched our first product in 2017. So our people analytics solution has been on the market for multiple years now. We sell predominantly to corporate clients, and our people analytics solution is an artificial intelligence driven cloud SaaS offering. So all you really need to operate the solution is a web browser. There's no on-site implementation, and because of that, some of our clients have been up and running with our solution in as little as 1 day. And we know full well that some HR software takes months or even years in some cases, as I hear, to implement. So enough said there. Here's a quick glance at some of our clients. We always try to show clients here from across various industries. So if and when you want to do business with us, we can let you talk with someone in or close to your own sector. And of course, that gives you an opportunity to get an idea about how they're using the solution, right? So we don't do everything on our own. We work with several excellent partners where in some cases they augment our solution, and in others we collaborate with them to sell our solution. Here are some of the partners listed here. Some of them you've probably heard of before, like ADP and Deltek, and others are more specialized and niche vendors. For example, Talent Guard provides a suite of talent management software to help companies and HR departments better engage and retain employees. Engage actually has the world's first AI-powered platform that combines talent mapping, competitive intelligence, passive candidate engagement, outbound recruiting, and web listening into one talent recruitment and engagement engine. And we actually offer the Engage AI recruiting solution as a module within the TrenData solution. Impact Workforce Technologies, a vendor management software that helps manage contingent labor across your organization, and Predictive HR does some of our implementations. Yeah. So as I was planning for this webinar, I was thinking back to memories of the 80s and 90s with my mother and father. My mom has close to 4 decades in HR leadership now, and my father was, back then, he was the business owner of a different company, among other things, before he retired. And I can remember my mom coming home from work and talking with my dad nightly about what was going on at the fairly large company that shall remain nameless where she worked. Uh, as we ate dinner together or had the television on for background noise, I remember listening to these conversations about what I understand today to be things like organizational restructuring, performance reviews, giving employees raises, terminations, turnover problems, or discussions about the pros and cons of benefit plans they were evaluating. And uh, the list of memories could really go on for a long time. I have a lot of memories of these long conversations, but one of the overarching takeaways for me was how I watched her work really hard to trudge through decisions that would impact the entirety of the organization where she led HR. So let's keep my story in mind, but come back to it in a minute after we talk about a few other things. So what is the difference anyway? There are a few different prefixes to the word analytics, which people are unfortunately using interchangeably in the human resources space. And I wanted us to get a little clarity on these terms before we move forward. So let's start with HR analytics. It's the most commonly used term according to Google, which isn't a shock because this is all variations of HR, human resources software. And it's often used interchangeably as a catch-all phrase for any vendor with a dashboard. Uh, just to kind of illustrate that, one of the questions we hear most often when talking with HR departments is something like, we already have SAP, ADP, Ultimate Software, or whatever the human resources information system may be that they have. But, they'll say something like, if we have that HRIS system, don't we already have analytics? Well, the direct answer is no. A dashboard does not analytics make. What these vendors are calling analytics are typically just metrics. So a dashboard doesn't necessarily mean you have analytics. It might just be snapshots in time of specific data sets. So look out for that common misconception if you're just starting out on your people analytics journey. So to get a more clear idea of what analytics is and where it came from, let's go in the Wayback Machine for a few years and think about the fact that HR technology really got its launch with PeopleSoft and SAP, but then 10, 15 years ago, a couple of parallel technologies started to come on the rise, which was workforce planning and talent management. So let's take a look at those two. Starting with workforce analytics. Workforce planning is essentially any solution that gives the ability to plan the future needs of your workforce. And really that's the ability to visualize. And it started with basic org charts. So you could at least see what your organization looked like. Then this evolved, some with people-to-people reporting and position-to-position reporting to show where you had open positions. Then eventually you could add other pieces of data to the puzzle, like an employee's department, their salary, and eventually you could roll all the data up to get some top-line statistics, like how many people you have in marketing or finance, or how many people are there in this salary bracket or that, or who has this particular skill set and location. And so this is really a precursor to analytics, but again, it's mostly just a snapshot in time that can tell you everything you have now, but it certainly didn't get into the evolution that we have today. So the other technology that moved us closer to people analytics, but still not the same, is talent management. And this is solutions that have the ability to help you recruit, hire, retain, and develop your most talented employees. So you can see the image of the talent management lifecycle from when someone is recruited into the organization, and it moves through onboarding, training, performance management, and succession planning. What happened as you went through every phase of this process is that you needed some kind of metric to show how many candidates were in the pipeline, or how many were hired last month, how many are in your succession plan, or what levels of career development there were. Again, all you're really looking at is snapshots of data. So really tying workforce planning and talent management together with a financial component to show impact to the organization as a whole, that's the core piece of the puzzle that was missing. So people analytics. This is about using a data-driven methodology to guide our people practices, processes, and programs. Analytical techniques spanning from reporting and metrics to predictive modeling and prescriptive analytics can help you uncover obviously new insights, can solve people problems, and direct your HR actions. For those who have adopted it, we now use people analytics as a foundational building block to inform everything we do to find, grow, and keep our employees. So when faced with important people decision or challenging people issue, like are we losing our highest performers and why, the traditional approach reminds me of those conversations that I listened to between my parents. And of course, I've heard similar conversations in my professional career. It's these long debates based on gut feelings, instincts, and experience, which college taught me may just be anecdotal stories, or at their best, one person research documented in their memory and conducted with a really small population sample size. So we believe instead that an analytical approach incorporating facts and science can lead to more effective, reasonable solutions and decisions, right? So as I mentioned before, we'd be hard pressed not to highlight some wake-up call catalysts that often drive a new people analytics initiative. These are some of the most common issues we observe in the market and see that drive HR departments to go and search for a people analytics solution. Leadership changes and acquisitions can really turn an organization on its head without proper preparation or the tools to assist in new difficulties that are inevitably going to pop up. Spending issues will prompt action from the HR department, and of course, you'll get even stronger encouragement from the C-suite to quit burning money or justify it to show an ROI on your initiatives. Turnover problems, recruiting woes, chronic organizational absenteeism, and spans of control nightmares are some other common reasons we've observed in the market to catalyze organizations to tackle a new people analytics strategy. Many business leaders think of HR as an administrative function. So when and if conversations with leadership are happening, it's generally about admin issues or personnel problems. And in my experience, most executives don't ask HR leaders strategic questions because they don't realize that HR has strategic solutions. So rather than trying to educate executives on the strategic capabilities of HR, a more direct approach might be to have them ask us more strategic questions, or even better, go to them with answers to the strategic questions you've already addressed. So here we're looking at 6 categories of these questions that organizations should be asking themselves. Now, during the original live airing of this webinar, we took everyone off of mute as we went through the questions, and when something sparked an idea, a story, questions, or a conversation, we were able to engage with each other to talk about it as a group. So there is definitely a benefit to attending our live webinars. However, no matter where you're watching the webinar, there will be a way to chat with us. So feel free to take advantage of our website chatbot. It knows what webinar you're watching, so your comments won't be out of context. The comments section or in a private direct message. We'd love for you to do that wherever you're watching this, and we'll be sure to keep the conversation going. So the questions that I'm going to share with you are pretty brilliant, and we could probably spend all day breaking each one of them down, but obviously we don't have that kind of time, so we'll just lay them out for you in succession. The questions are directly from or inspired by Dr. Steve Hunt, who wrote a couple of insightful books on the topic at hand. One is called Common Sense Talent Management, using strategic human resources to improve company performance. And the other one is hiring success, the art and science of staffing assessment and employee selection. So with no further ado, let's take a look at questions from each of these categories. Starting with organizational structure. Do we have the right roles, and are we staffing them from the right talent pools? Are we positioned to quickly scale the size of our company up or down in response to changing business needs, labor market fluctuations, new technologies, acquisitions, market expansions, or increased use of contingent labor? And perhaps most important of all, are we thinking beyond the traditional org chart view of what a company is? So that's organizational structure questions to think about. This one are some from employee experience. Do people have access to the knowledge, tools, and relationships they need to be successful in their jobs? Does the work experience we provide convey the culture and reputation needed to attract and retain talent drawn from a rapidly changing workforce? And are we actively measuring the critical factors that drive an effective employee experience? So these come from employee engagement, just 4 of them here. Do people have a strong sense of ownership toward their work? Are they focused, energized, and committed to doing what's needed to make the company successful? Can we quickly communicate changes in strategy and direction so employees at all levels understand what it means for their jobs and careers? Are we managing for long-term adaptability and not just emphasizing short-term productivity? Talent management. Are we maximizing the return on investment we get from money spent to hire, pay, reward, develop, and retain people? Are we creating the kind of leaders and skilled employees we need for the future? Are we effectively identifying and managing critical talent that will have a disproportionate impact on the success of the company? And then workforce health, before we move on to the last one. Are we creating an environment where employees can manage the challenges of work and life in a healthy, productive, and sustainable manner? Are we instilling a culture of inclusion that fully leverages the talents of an increasingly diverse workforce? And are we providing employees with supportive workplace that enables them to approach change as an opportunity for growth? And then, did you catch that? Each section before included questions that lend themselves to producing an answer of whether or not something is producing an ROI. So really taking a step back and thinking about these questions from a global view, we can see that they do indeed lend themselves to a broader focus. And that was pointed out in the conversations that we had as a group. So let's continue on here and ask ourselves, how do we identify the right problems and questions to ask? Well, instead of beginning with metrics, you could utilize questions that you already have about your organization and work backwards to figure out what type of data you need. So this will really help you as an exercise in a group. It'll help you spend the requisite time up front, clearly defining the problems that you need to address, right? So we start by asking ourselves and our department if the people, programs, policies, and processes we have in place are working. Next, we take that survey out into the field and we ask other leaders in the organization how effective our initiatives are. Here, you're likely going to get feedback you didn't expect, and there will be opportunities to improve that become exposed. So what are these 3 E's? They make up something called the triple aim framework, which I learned from Google University, but I thought it was really clever and worked just beautifully here. So I think this will clarify what I mean by these 3 E's. Effectiveness. So the question would be something like, are your people programs, policies, and processes yielding the right outcomes? So for example, if we're talking about the hiring process, improving effectiveness would result in higher, better performers over time. hiring better performers over time, that is. Efficiency, so can we get to the same outcomes in a shorter time span or by spending less money or with fewer people? In a hiring example, that'd be like higher efficiency would result in a lower cost per hire. And then when it comes to experience, that'd be something like, can we improve how individuals experience these programs and processes? And then in hiring, that might include measures of how candidates perceive their interviewing experience and their interactions with recruiters. So that wraps up my portion of the webinar. And this was the point in the live webinar where I introduced Tom McEwen, CEO and co-founder of TrenData, where he showed us a demonstration of the people analytics solution, tackling not only a lot of the questions we talked about in this webinar with ease, but he showed us just how TrenData equips human resource and business leaders with the ability to harness external big data sources, including but not limited to SAP, Oracle, Workday, along with internal systems to deliver actionable workforce insights. We also showed off our high-powered artificial intelligence engine used to generate predictive analytics. And like I said earlier, you may have missed the interactive portions and Q&A segment of the webinar, but it's still very easy to engage with us wherever you are. And if your HR department wants to see a live demo, or if you do, of the TrenData solution, simply go to trendata.com and select request presentation at the top of any page, and we'd be happy to meet with you. So thank you all again for your time today, and we're looking forward to talking with you in the future. Thank you very much.